Hello, hi, welcome everyone. I see that we have already 53 attendees. Welcome. My name is Victor Valenti. I work for GIZ and I will be moderating this webinar today together with my colleague Marvin Stolz. This webinar is a second of a series of webinars called Resilience and Transportation. This time we're gonna talk about the lessons from India while responding to COVID-19. This series is co-organized by TUMI, Euroclima Plus, as part of GIZ, and also NUMO and WRI. The idea is to underscore the impacts of Corona in the transport sector and also exchange some knowledge about possible solutions that are being taken around the world. So the first webinar took place in April, and we had 3 speakers from Latin America. For the second webinar, we have the opportunity to dive into the situation in India that has had a lockdown since the end of March and how COVID is affecting mobility there. So for that, we have invited 3 guests that are on your screen. Dr. O.P. Argal, Mrs. Sarika Panda, and Mr. Lagu Parashar. Thank you very much for attending, for participating. It's really an honor for us to have you on board in this webinar. And I will present now the content of the webinar. So we're gonna have first Lagu presenting the impacts of COVID in the public transport and the measures taken so far, mostly. Lagu currently works for GIZ as a senior technical advisor in India. He's a transportation planner and have more than 15 years of experience in planning, design, and implementation of public transportation projects, including BRTs and seat bus systems. Lagu has been part of formulating various policies and standards for sustainable transport at state and as well national level. Second, OP will address the impacts of lockdown on transport service and possible responses, as you see on your screen, from public policies to ensure sustainable mobility is not compromised. Dr. O.P. Argal is currently the CEO of WRI in India. Earlier, he held positions including Secretary for Transport in the state of Assam and OSD for Urban Transport in the National Ministry of Urban Development. He was also the principal author of the National Urban Transport Policy adopted by the government in 2006. OP has a PhD in Transport Economics from the Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi, and a master's degree in Transportation from MIT in the US. At last, Sarika will walk us through the impacts of the lockdown in the environment and transport policy in India, a long-term perspective. Sarika is a sustainable cities professional with specialization in civic engagement. Her current roles include directing the India Vision Zero, Inclusive Streets and Sustainable Transportation Program as Associate Director at Nagaru. Sarika is also a co-founder of the Hagiri Day campaign, which is India's first sustained car-free event. Sarika holds a bachelor's degree in architecture and master's degree in planning from the School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi. She also holds a master's degree in sociology. Thanks again for being with us. Last comment before we start. I would like to ask everyone who is not speaking to mute your mics. Question can be taken from now on. You just use in your dashboard. You can use the chat function. My colleague Marvin will be collecting those questions and will be afterwards moderating the Q&A session. Make sure you write the name of the speaker that you are addressing the question. And without further ado, I will hand the floor and also the mouse to Lagu to start his presentation. So Lagu, you have the mouse and you can start presenting.
Thank you, Victor.
Welcome.
I'll just.
Yep.
So I still don't have command, I think. Mouse.
We can see the presentation. You already are you able to pass the slides?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so I can do it for you, no problem.
Yeah, please. Okay, good evening everyone from India. So it's 5:30 over here, and I hope all of you are safe at your home. Yeah. Let's start with a brief of our activities in India under the GIZ Smart SUT project we are doing. Peter, can you switch on to the next slide? Yeah. So under the Smart SUT, which is a sustainable urban mobility project, GIZ India is implementing, which is on behalf of BMZ with the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs at a national level. And currently the focus of the project are 3 states, which is Odisha, Coimbatore, and Kerala, 3 states in India. And the focus is on implementing the sustainable mobility projects. Okay, next slide. Yeah. Smart SOT is basically focusing on area of activities related to sustainable mobility, including public transportation, bus-based public transportation, non-motorized transport, digitalization, and institutional strengthening, road safety, and various other future mobility uh, things like shared mobility and electric mobility. And the major focus is on the training and the capacity building, which is associated with all the activities which we are working in India. Next slide. So this is a brief intro regarding the activities, transportation activity which we are working in India on behalf of GIZ. Yeah, Victor, next. Yeah, so let's come on to the topic which we are here. So we are in a lockdown due to COVID situation since March 24th, and let me just tell that we are a population of 1.33 billion population country, and the lockdown is so far is being followed in very disciplined way by majority of the country, and it has started showing the impact, so that we can see the growth rate is not exponential as the other part of the world. This is a good thing. Next. Lockdown has shown a significant impact on the mobility pattern of the people, and as per the Google mobility report recently published, the mobility of the people has reduced for various activities, from varying from 40% to 85%. Okay, so it has a huge impact, of course, and uh, of course residential areas you can see positive, because it's like everybody is at home. It's like a local mobility is left only, and but usually it has impacted the overall mobility pattern across all the sectors. Yes. Lockdown has a apparently huge impact on the migrated population, which is internal migration is very high in India, which is as per the previous census, 40 million internal migrate from the rural areas to the urban areas, from one city to the other city. And apparently the lockdown created a little painful impact on this population. And there was at the initial stage, it was a chaotic situation, but now it is being taken care of, and there are special trains, special buses, which are helping the migrant and the students to reach their locations, respective locations, and this is being taken care of. But of course, in the first phase, it was a very painful situation for the migrants. Next. Yeah, not to be said, but thanks to the lockdown, we saw something which we never seen in decades. Blue skies, clear river. In fact, the skies were so blue that mountains could be seen from one city to the other city. Okay, the AQI level, the PM 2.5 level gone down by as below as 50%. So uh, it was like a lockdown for us was a blessing in disguise, and it it gives us that environment which probably we think we deserve. Okay, and it leaves no argument and debate on the sources of pollutions which is in the environment and our rivers. So it's 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 a different scenery which we have seen in last few weeks. Next. Yeah, let's talk about something on public transportation. So immediately after the lockdown, while there was no movement was happening and offices, all activities, schools, colleges were closed, bus transport immediately changed its role, and it's become like a guardian of mobility, as this term was I adopted from one of the UITP blog, which is very apt for this situation. And the various bus transport organizations start mobilizing their fleet for goods delivery, health workers, and the migrated for dedicated services for migrated population and the students. So there was immediate change in the role because this was the requirement that particular time, and this is still happening. And all majority of the bus transport organizations are still providing those essential services. Next slide. Yeah. These are just a few examples how various bus transport organizations are working their grocery on the wheel to reach at the door of the people so that people need not to come out for essential services. The vending zones were created at the bus stops for local markets as a local market for the communities. Next. Yeah, and the emergency services were provided by the bus transporters, are being provided by the bus transportation. This is one of the example of our partner city in Bhubaneswar. And the sanitization buses were immediately customized as a sanitization tunnel. And in fact, cold storage facilities were provided by the buses. So as I said, the multiple roles are being played by the bus transport organization right now in the country, which is a commendable job. So just to give you a big picture of the bus transportation in India, we have close to 150,000 buses under the public buses, which is owned and operated by close to 52 state transport undertaking in India, and this include the intercities, rural services, and the urban services. And apparently, we are, as far as urban services estimates are concerned, we are deficit in supply, and most of all the bus transport authorities in India are incurring the financial losses. So the situation is already was never be very positive as far as financial of the bus transport in India is concerned. Next. Yeah. So talking about the impact, how it has a the COVID has a short term and the long term impact on could have a impact on the bus transportation. So as per one of the estimate that it might take 9 to 12 months by the time we reach to that situation where we will have a 100% ridership equivalent to the normal days. And if you look at, we have a 2 months of lockdown phase, and there will be transition phase, and post that 9 to 12 months will take to reach us to the normal ridership levels. But during this time, there will not be any significant change as far as costs are concerned. So even if you see the lockdown phase where the buses are not operating with the full fleet, the only reduction in the cost would be the material cost, which is the fuel cost, and most of the cost will remain the fixed cost, whether you run the buses or you don't run the buses, and which that fixed cost is almost in the range of 60 to 65%. So which is in very high, and at the same time the revenues are not either zero during the lockdown phases, and even in the recovery phase it will, due to the obligatory social distancing, the revenue will not be as equivalent to the normal days post pre-lockdown situation. So it is going to take something like from 30% to 60%. Then by the time it will reach to the 100% of equivalent to the normal days, it might take 9 to 12 months. Next. So as I said, a broad estimate suggests, earlier I was saying that we will never be in a profit-making bus transportation in India, and lockdown situation and the post-lockdown situation over period next 12 months will further incur the huge losses on the bus transportation. It would add on to the distress of the bus transport organization, which they were already facing for many years. And this could be as high as I said, as we have estimated, it could be as high as 70% of the previous value. So it currently, as per the estimate, it is close to 3.6 billion euro. It may go as high as 6 billion euro because of the situation. And as I was saying, that this is going to cause further distressful situation for the bus transport organizations. Next. So other than the financial impact, there are other pressing issues which bus transport organization go to face. Of course, the working capital requirement, because as of now, even authorities are facing challenges even paying the salaries, basic salaries of the people, the crew, the staff, and once this lockdown will be over, to start the operation, that the working capital requirement will again be challenged. There will be uncertainty in the passenger demand. We don't know how many passengers will come back and what will be the demand. So the operation planning will be an issue, and the flexible scheduling will be requirement, and this is going to be a challenge for the bus transport organization. Again, on the crew management side, because a lot of crew, on-board crew is a migrated population, and they are not going to come back soon, and this will create a situation where authorities will not be able to arrange 100% fleet on the road. So this is again going to be an issue. Training to the staff to monitor the social distancing, which is mandatory. Lack of equipment availability and the availability of the infrastructure immediately after the lockdown. These are the pressing issues, immediate issue, which is going to be faced by the bus transport organization in future. Next. So, post giving a picture of bus transportation, GIZ India issued recently standard operating procedures, basically for the safe operation of the bus transportation post lockdown, and which covers SOPs for the working areas, buses and the authorities, passengers, crew, onboard crew and outboard crew, bus shelter, interchange, and the pedestrian and cycling facility. So for detailing of all these things, you can always refer the link given in the bottom. I'll just discuss about few specific suggestion as a part of this SOPs. Next slide, Vita. Yeah. So post lockdown, bus operation would require to maintain the social distancing. And to maintain that social distancing, the capacity of the buses will require to be 1/3 of the normal capacity. So if, let's say, for example, if 12-meter bus has a capacity of 60 to 65, to maintain that requisite social distancing, they cannot have more than 20 to 22 passengers. and this will further reduce, of course, as we talk about, further reduce the revenues. And for the 9-meter buses, this will be 12 to 14 as against the 45 total passenger capacity. Now this how basically cities are required to mark the location for the standing passenger, and there has to be unidirectional movement for entry and the exit of the passengers, so that there is no clash in the boarding and alighting between the passengers. And very peculiar issue is related with the India in bus transportation, because majority of our transaction, the ticketing inside the buses is cash based. So we are still penetration of digital payment is still very less, as low as or less than 5% in the bus transportation. So this is a big issue, and conductor will remain conductor, when I say, is a ticket collector inside the bus, which exchange the cash and issue the ticket. So, but in the post-COVID situation, SOP suggests the conductor role should be more of a crowd manager inside the bus. And as much as possible, cities should migrate to the digital platform for the payment. And if it is not immediately possible, so as you can see, there is a provision of the cash drop box, and it suggests the cities can, for a few months, can migrate on the flat fare. Okay, so there is no exchange of the cash and the changes and the ticketing with the conductor, and this cash drop can be used for dropping the money. So this is one of the situation which is very specific to the Indian cities, where the digital payment is still at a very low stage. And now, to maintain this kind of a social distancing, of course, the bus supply requirement will be very high. Okay, and city may require more buses, and probably city can use to hire the school transportation, college transportation buses, and the tourist buses, which will not be available, which will not be required at this particular summer season. And other suggestions provide social distancing at bus stop, to provide in the queue, to mark the spot location in the queue, and for a separator, basically transparent curtain for the driver area, so that there is no physical interaction between the driver and the boarding and alighting passengers. Next. Sorry. So as I said, that social distancing, maintaining social distancing inside the bus will remain an issue. And there are multiple methods. Either we increase the supply, okay, which will require the cost, which will have a cost implication, and of course the hiring of additional buses. The other alternate solution could be that we spread the peak demand. Okay, in all our cities, the demand in particular peak hour is very high, and which dropped after the peak hour. So it is very important that we spread that demand over a few hours instead of one peak hour. And this can be done probably following some staggering working hour and working days pattern across the city. So as you can, we try to demonstrate over here. As you can see, the passenger demand in particular hour, how it can be distributed across 3 to 4 hours. So we try to demonstrate it with one example. Next. Yeah, this is using the data of Bhubaneswar, one of our partner city. We just plotted all the high demand bus stops which have highest boarding and alighting pattern, and this is the influence area of those high demand, 1 kilometer influence area of all those high demand bus stops. And we try to find out what kind of land use these bus stop, this influence zone has, which is influence zone of high demand bus stop. So where the office areas, the market, the hospitals, and all these things. And we try to figure out what is the existing peak and peak patterns and the demand pattern, hourly demand pattern on in these areas, and how it can be further spread over few hours. Basically, how to flatten the peak. So as you can see, top of that, I try to demonstrate with that this Patia zone, which is a huge high tier in the Bhubaneswar, has almost more than 15 stops, and it has a high passenger demand area. So in next slide. So in the entire Patia, we divided all various land use into various categories: the IT offices, and the banks and government offices, and the shops. And we try to study what are the current peak and what can be done, how the staggering can help in flattening the peak. So this is a good example at how the database can be, mobility data can be used to basically suggesting the staggering in demand and optimum utilization of transportation available with us to maintain that social distancing. But of course, we need to have that mobility data, which is not the case in many of the cities. And fortunately, we have data available for one of our partner city, and we managed to help them. Next. So lastly, as I said previously, the lockdown caused a distress situation for most of the cities and the states and their financial conditions. And it is not only the bus transport, they have other priorities also, including the health sector, MSMEs, and other things. So apparently now cities and the states have started exploring various sources of revenue. They started imposing the additional cess and the surcharges on petrol and diesel, and raising the finances to deal with this post-COVID situation, and to bridge the financial losses which they incur during this period of time and which they are going to incur in the future. So these are the few examples, and I'm sure many other states will also follow this to explore, to raise the finances using the various sources. And this is something which is most famous source I have seen, actually most common one, which is being used by the states. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Victor. Thank you very much for being patient.
Thank you, Lagu. Thank you very much as well. Now I'll hand the mic and also the words to Opie. Opie, the mic is yours.
Thanks, Victor. Can we stop sharing the screen so that is it possible to get the slide away?
Yes, it's possible. But I mean, I think I just have the slide with your name and your photo, so I think it's fine, right? Or do you want to show something?
No, I have nothing to show. Okay. I want to try and save some more time. That's why I have no slides at all. I just want to
okay.
So Lagu gave an excellent presentation on what is the impact on bus transport, and as we start coming back, how bus transport systems can be organized. I think that was an outstanding presentation. I had some thoughts on this, but I don't think I'll repeat that. I sort of completely endorse what Lagu has said. What I will focus on a little more is the opportunity that this COVID has given to us to rethink our mobility systems. And as we start coming back out of the lockdown, where everything was closed, as we come out of the lockdown and the experience that we've had in the lockdown in terms of much better air quality, much better visibility, some of the things that people have seen are the kinds of things that they would like to continue seeing even after the lockdown. And this is what gives us a number of opportunities that I think we should start looking at. So as Lagu said, the challenges that we face as we come out of the lockdown are going to be, one, you will have transport system operators who have incurred financial losses during the lockdown and know that they will continue to incur them for longer. So there will be a financial issue for each of the operators. We will have this challenge of people wanting to be a little away from each other. Regulations will also require to keep people a little away from each other. So they will have to operate at roughly 1/3 the capacity. That is the other problem that's going to come up. So it's really an opportunity to start thinking of more distributed systems, but relatively low capacity systems and more sustainable systems. And the one thing that it really throws up an opportunity for is to look at more sustainable cycling and walking opportunities. I would even say micro mobility options, which this is the time where we can think of them. This is the time when you have fewer cars on the streets. We are going to see fewer cars. We're going to see less traffic. This is the opportunity to start looking at redesigning our streets so that they become more friendly towards walking and cycling. I think it's also the opportunity to start scaling up electric mobility solutions, and particularly electric mobility using small vehicles, the little mopeds, the two-wheelers, that kind of thing, which will be very good for short distances and which will also be very good as feeder systems to mass transit. So I think this is an opportunity that we should not miss and really go aggressively into looking at non-motorized and electric mobility, more sustainable mobility solutions. Now, what Laghu didn't talk about, and which I want to talk a little bit about, are the mass transit systems in India. Now, as you know, about 10 or 12 cities in India have metro rail systems. And these metro rail systems are really high density. At least 2 of them are operating at very high capacity. 1 or 2 of the others are at relatively medium capacity, but quite a few are operating at fairly low levels of ridership. So the ones that are at low levels of ridership, I don't visualize a problem for them. They will be able to continue. But things like the Delhi Metro, or things like the Mumbai Metro, and particularly the Mumbai suburban systems, these are going to face huge challenges because they will be operating at way below the kind of passenger ridership they have today. And what can we do there? A question that is coming up in a lot of the discussions is, should we discourage people from coming to these metros, or should we do something else? The challenge is, if you start discouraging people to come to the metros, they'll soon move away from them. And in the longer run, you may see lower riderships on them. So that, I think, is a big question mark that's coming, that if they come, if we don't discourage people from coming, then how do we transport them? I think this is, again, an opportunity to look at whether metro systems need to transport everybody only by the metro, or are the metro systems willing to think of themselves as transport providers and for a temporary period provide alternative modes of transport, but through the metro brand name or through the metro system operations. So this is a question that's going to come up. Can, for example, the metro systems hire buses for a short while from the tour operators and others who really have no business right now? They're looking for opportunities to do business but nothing to do. Can those buses be hired, say, by the metro companies to operate buses on some route and provide the transportation service, even if it's not done through the metro coaches? I think that is something that needs to be thought of. Electric mobility is going to be a big, this is the opportunity. This is the time where India needs to get its acts together on electric mobility, have this kind of fragmented thinking of electric mobility coming together so that we have a very strong approach to how we are going to deliver on electric mobility. I think this is the opportunity. I don't want to say much more on this, but essentially to highlight again that let's not think of going back to the old business forms, but this is the time to think of how newer forms of mobility, more sustainable forms of mobility can be built in. I think this is the opportunity to build back much better than the way we have done it earlier. I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, OP, for your thoughts about the topic, and we're gonna have you until the end, so probably you have some questions for you as well. Now I'll hand over to Sarika. OP, if you could turn off, yes, camera. I will hand over to Sarika, and who will be walking us through this last presentation. Hello, Sarika.
Hi, Victor. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. And I think a lot of things has been shared by my co-speakers and presenters. So I think many very valid points has been highlighted. So I just wanted to highlight few more things through my presentation. I cannot change the slide. So Victor, can you help me?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so next slide. So everyone, most of us know these numbers, and it's very sad to see all these numbers. But somehow, fortunately, India still is under control. But even 1,300 plus lives we have already lose, and when we say that even one life is important, so we need to think, how we have to. control this situation and look forward for some new strategies. Next. And as it has basically declared as a pandemic, so we can see this number is growing, and this graph is growing from day 0 to day 50 and plus. So, and it will grow till we don't get any proper medical solution to this pandemic, and we need to think how to control, again, how to control this. Next, Victor. So to control this, before getting any medical treatment, two things most of the government has adopted. First thing is social distancing. So to basically reduce the human to human contact and reduce the impact of the COVID-19. So first thing we did is the social distancing, and then next is the lockdown. So the lockdown is basically many countries has declared, and even India has declared for almost 2 months. And this lockdown has given the time for preparation to fight for before any kind of vaccine or medical things are coming. And this lockdown has even not just given a preparation time for to the government, but to us as an individual also. Next. And we have some positive and negative impacts. So I want to highlight most important impact is the impact on, like, how the urban transport, the public transport uses has been declined. And if you see, this red line is from India. Lagu already highlighted that almost 80% uses of public transport system, especially buses, has been reduced in India. And similarly in London, Singapore, South Korea, and many other cities. So it's something to really think through and take action accordingly. And because of this, as people are not moving, as there is no economic activities happening in the cities and even in the rural areas, there is a huge impact on economy. Then you can see this is from the stock market, and we can see that impact. And recently we saw one of the state has declared that they have loss of 95% GDP. So something to really look upon and understand and act accordingly. Next. So the only solution is getting some kind of medical treatment. And many countries, including India, are doing some kind of research to get this vaccine soon. But till then, till the vaccine is not coming, we have to look into other solutions. Next. As I said, there is an impact, there is a negative impact on public transport, but there is a positive impact on air quality. From decades, we as a practitioner, as as a government and many other organization, working hard. Actually, they were working hard from decades to get the air pollution down in most of the cities. And as we know that Delhi is one of the most polluted city in the world, from last 10 years we were debating and discussing how to reduce the air pollution in Delhi. But fortunately or unfortunately, the COVID has given this positive impact on air quality. You can see the November and the March, and it is not just just in the picture. Next. Next slide. We have numbers, so you can clearly see Delhi has a reduction, more than 40% reduction in PM 2.5 and more than 50% reduction in NOx. And similarly, in many other cities like Mumbai, Bangalore, and other smaller cities also. So this has a huge impact, and we were thinking from decades, and we got the solution now. And we need to, move forward with this solution. Second important thing is road safety. So yes, next. So there is a lot of improvement in road safety. There is really decline on road traffic crashes globally and in India. We got some data from Paris and then from China that 50% reduction happened. But before this presentation, I got the data from Haryana that almost 75% reduction in Haryana. So we used to, lose around 400 people every month in Haryana due to road traffic crashes, and in April is reduced to 92. So though 92 is also a huge number, as I said, even a single life is important. But this 75 to 80% reduction in road traffic crashes, again we need to think how we are not going back to the old school practices and adopting some new thing to make this thing sustainable. The air, let the air also be clear as it's right now and after the lockdown, and even the road traffic crashes also. Next. And most of us have seen so many beautiful pictures of this wildlife coming back to cities. Multiple animals on the streets, and there are a lot of birds we can see around and all that. As we know that human need to live with this ecosystem and with the biodiversity. So this is again one of the positive impact. Next. So we have to look into how to respond this, and we need to respond this in these three phases. First is the lockdown. We did it, and we got this preparation time. The government got the preparation time to prepare for the worst to come, and then we opened up also slowly. India has opened up partially, and of course the numbers are increasing, but I think it's in every city and every country. But many people, what they are thinking is this opening up is the new normal, and that's the fear. This opening up is new. After the first day of opening up, we got huge traffic jam in multiple cities. So are we really going to adopt the same thing? Are we really looking for that kind of traffic jam again? I think no. Nobody wants to have that hazy sky, or bad quality water, or hearing the road traffic crashes death. So what is the new normal? So to think of the new normal, we have to adopt these 5 things. So first is increased technology adoption. We all we are doing a lot of webinars, and it's so good that we are talking and sharing our knowledge, not going to traveling to multiple cities and doing big conferences. Same thing, there was a huge untrust that working from home is not that effective, and this pandemic has proved that working from home is actually more and more effective, whereas we were losing our productive time on traveling, and traveling again was adding to air pollution and road traffic crashes, and we were able to reduce that. We can see lesser cars on roads has impacted on air quality and road traffic crashes. So I think this work from home, adoption of new technology, I think many things will be going on, card paying on online system and all that. So I think new technological innovation is going to emerge more and more, and the pandemic has proved it. Next. The demand on transit, as my co-speakers has already mentioned, but there will be new kind of demand on public transportation. The social distancing is a big threat, as Laghu also mentioned, in public transport system. But I think there is new innovations coming. I saw a lot of pictures, especially from my home city, that how the buses are, alternative seats they have occupied, and the buses they started transferring the patient from one place to another, helping on sending essential items through buses, and now they are sending the migrant labor in similar way. And I think a lot of new innovation is going to come as the demand is going to definitely increase. Innovation on the transit demand also. Next. And then what I say is we need to recycle our city. And again, so heartening to see multiple cities are adopted this, and how they have converted the carriageway to bigger walkways and cycle tracks and all that. And it is not, it is not very difficult thing to do. It's just the willingness to do. And it's again, fortunately or unfortunately, a top down approach. And first government has to decide that what they really want, and citizen, we need to accept it. So making cycle tracks or footpath is not very expensive thing. We no need to spend millions of rupees to do this. Through small tactical urbanism, we can convert and make beautiful cycle tracks, as I can see in many cities, putting some bollards, some paints, and some planters, and you can create beautiful cycle tracks where actually pleasantly people can walk and cycle. Though we know that even cities like Copenhagen and Amsterdam, the cycling cities of our world, also not that 100% people are cycling. But yes, if you provide safe infrastructure, there will be a huge mode shift. Next. And the fifth one is the urban deliveries. And because of this lockdown and the social distancing and all that, most of us are dependent on this deliveries, and it is again going to improve more and more. And somehow all these things also going to impact in our air quality and road safety, because we are reducing our travels and reducing fewer cars, fewer vehicles from the street. So again, need to think how to enhance this more and more. Next. Last but not the least, as Mr. O.P. Agrawal has already highlighted, zero emission transport, how we can move to electric mobility. And it is very important that, as Mr. Agrawal has already mentioned, that how we can adopt this in the smaller vehicles like, two-wheelers, electric cycles and all that. The second important thing is, the public transport system, buses, because if in getting individual into EV is, I think, is challenging, still challenging, but easily and quickly we can really convert our public transport, our buses, our taxis, like the Ola and Uber of the world, can be converted into EV very easily. And it can actually have huge impact on our air quality. And we need to understand even how to address the electric mobility through alternative energy, not just fossil fuel. Next. Yeah, this is really very important. And again, in the end, I just want to highlight, life of, like, post COVID, the what is the world that we are thinking post COVID. All this kind of development that we do, there are short-term developments like capital stock and other, which will take 10-15 years or so, we don't know. Like it might take lesser, but it's again short-term impact. Then there is long-term impact on capital stock. But most important thing is infrastructure, land use, and urban form. If you are not choosing it rightly, if you are not developing it rightly, if you are not planning it rightly, then it will take you 100 years to basically correct it. So very important. This 5 months has given us a lot of lessons. So what we need to do is, we need to think, pause, and then move. And that has to be our new normal, and not rushing up again and going to our old ways of life. So here, next. So thank you. And I think lot to learn from this COVID, and let's adopt it.
Thank you very much, Sarika, for this interesting presentation. Hi everyone, my name is Marvin and I'll be taking over now for the Q&A session. Also a great thank you to OP and Lago, of course, for your participation or contribution to this webinar. So I have seen a lot of activity in the chat function so far. I've collected some questions here, and what we're going to do is I will redirect them to our speakers now and give them the chance to answer them. And I would say we start right into it. So maybe a question for OP and Lago first. While we talked about impact of COVID-19 on the mass transit, what about informal transport sector, for example, the intermediate public transport, which caters to significant demand, especially in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities? Operators of these modes are facing significant challenges right now, especially financial challenges. What should the government do about this? That would be the first question. Maybe OP, you want to go first?
Thanks for this. Yes, I mean, bus transport across the country, whether it's large cities or small cities or medium cities, they're all getting affected. And they are in pretty bad shape. I think, as Laghu very rightly pointed out, that almost 60% of their expenditure they continue to meet, yet there is no revenue that is coming. The only thing that is possibly happening with some of the private operators is they may have gone in for some kind of a salary cut. So the expenditure may also have come down a little bit. But financially, they're going to be in trouble. The kind of things that they are asking for, what I'm hearing from many of the bus operators and their confederations is not so much making up those losses, but what they are asking for is, going forward, can you help us by way of reducing some of our tax burdens and deferring some of the interest on the loans that we have taken? I think these are very, very reasonable requirements or expectations. And I, for one, think that the government will agree to them. What may be difficult for the government to do is actually give them a cash subsidy to make up for past losses. But any request for reducing the tax burden or deferring an interest burden, I think is very reasonable. That's my view, but I think Laghu may be able to answer this.
I think OP sir has covered already very well, but just to add up what sir has said. So yes, it is correct that the majority of our public transport supply, especially in the Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, is still from paratransit. It's just your informal transportation system, and this informal transport system pose a lot of competition for the formal transport system also. And but at the same time, they play a major role also as far as supply is concerned. Yes, they will also incur the huge losses, and since they are not part of the formal system, they will not be eligible. They may not be eligible for that kind of financial support which government may like to bring in future. Okay, but at the same time, they are going to incur huge losses. Their livelihood has been impacted hugely, and maintaining social distance, those kind of obligation will further impact their livelihood in future. But at the same time, I see it as an opportunity to reset the things which we were trying so many years as far as informal transport is concerned, especially the shared autos, auto rickshaws. So let's say, for example, recently one of the state government has provided 5,000 rupees per month support to this transport system. It would be worth exploring to bring in some reforms into the informal transport system while providing such kind of financial support. What if you will be eligible for this financial support if you install the GPS system, which they were not doing so far. If you follow the digital payment system, if you start following the metering system while charging the passengers. So financial support will be provided, and I'm sure government must be thinking about it because huge population is involved in this informal transport system. But it is an opportunity to bringing some kind of a reforms in this particular sector, and this opportunity should not be lost. Thank you.
Thank you to you both. So talking about reforms, another question about electric solutions. So OP, you said that we should promote electric solutions now, but the electric mobility field is dominated by e-buses implemented in various cities. So should the government or should government bodies promote them or go with some other new electric solutions which are not tested in India after the lockdown period? What's your take on that?
I think, the whole technology for electric vehicles is fairly rapidly evolving. Today, we mostly talk about the lithium-ion battery. But there are other battery chemistries that are being researched. There is also a fair bit of work happening on the hydrogen-based solutions. These are evolving fairly rapidly. And the question really is whether you wait for them to stabilize and then try to promote it, or whether you move ahead with what is already there. And there, at least my view is, if you're going to wait for something to stabilize, then by the time that stabilizes, something else will also come up. I think that what the government needs to do is really get its policies together. Today, I think that kind of an integrated policy and a good structured roadmap on how we're going to move ahead. Since that is missing, I think the industry is also very uncertain of how much they should produce. Everyone wants to be visible in the space, but no one is really moving forward aggressively to grab a market that they see. Today, they're not really seeing that market. I think the role that government has to play is really making sure and making, coming up with a policy that lays down the roadmap over the next 4 to 5 years with very clear timelines of what we will do by when. As far as new technologies are concerned, I think they should certainly be researched. Every effort should be made to go ahead with some of these technologies. I think the new battery technologies will offer a much longer range, will probably offer lighter batteries. That's going to be important for India. I think hydrogen fuel will be a very good kind of fuel, particularly for intercity traffic, long distance traffic. So I, for one, would think that, yes, we should move ahead with what we have today, but at the same time, look at new options that are coming up and see how we can deploy them going forward.
Okay.
Just a comment. Since we didn't have the time as planned for the discussion, if we agreed already with the speakers that we could have 10 minutes extra time, so please feel free to still send your questions. We're gonna stick a little bit longer. Okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Victor, for that information. So coming to the next question, a more general question. This pandemic has introduced a new fear of public transport. What should the government do to bring in safety as an immediate action once the lockdown is open? And if AC vehicles are not recommended, how do you think particularly metro can prepare itself? And here OP and Lago are addressed as well.
You want me to? Lago, you want to go first?
No, sir, you go first. I'll just add. Yeah, please.
Okay, I think it's, to me, it's a good opportunity for us to start thinking of whether we want to build metros the way we are doing it today. I mean, in cities where we are seeing city after city building metros with very low ridership in any case. So I think it's an opportunity for the government to really rethink where we want to build metros. As far as the metros which are already carrying a lot of people, I think you need high capacity systems. This is a special situation. In this special situation, it's causing a problem. In the longer run, I think we do need high capacity systems in the kind of densities that India has. The question is, how do we handle metro during this special period? And as Laghu said, this will last about 9 months or so. What do we do in these 9 months? And in these 9 months, my suggestion would be metro operators should not think of them as only rail-based system operators, but also bring in a bunch of bus operators to supplement their services, and particularly bus operators who today have no business. I think that is a temporary solution that metro operators should have. In the longer term, we will need mass capacity systems. But as I said, do we need it in every city? This is an opportunity for us to rethink that.
Okay, thank you very much, OP. So coming to the next question, are there any plans for the time after the lockdown to maintain the improved level of air and water quality? How can we avoid a rebound effect? Sarika, this might be a question for you. Sorry, Sarika, I think you're muted. Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, so we have to, actually, we don't have any choice. As we see, this is, we are so worried about human life now. We are giving importance to human life. And for example, we can see the best practices due to COVID now. Every day we are getting update on how many got positive cases, how many people we lose, and all that thing. So I like to highlight that, every year we lose around 1.3 million people due to air pollution in India, and similarly around 0.1 million people due to road traffic crashes. So definitely we need to look into new policies, though we have good policies, but still we have not adopted those policies and not practicing those policies. For example, NUTP guidelines, Mr. Agrawal was part of it, and hardly any city adopt that policy. So we have policies, we need to make it as rule now. Otherwise, definitely we are going to face more and more such pandemics. So it's just not national level, state has to adopt things, and even city level. We really need to work on city level. We need to improve the governance of cities in India, rather than making it always top down approach. Some policy in the national level happened, and either people can adopt or not adopt. It's not mandatory. Many things are like that. But cities has to rethink on how to make their cities sustainable, to improve their air quality. Already, as I said, like for improving the water quality, there are billions of rupees has been sanctioned to improve the water quality through Namami Gange and other river regeneration projects. We have that money, so this money, now our rivers are clean, so we don't no need to go back to the old practices. We need to think which industries we need to close, or which industries we need to look upon that polluting industries are not near the river bank, not discharging their bad water quality to the rivers. It's so simple solution, and that money can be again can be used on improving better public transport system, the bus system in cities, better walking and cycling infrastructure in the cities. And I must say that many cities has adopted this lockdown when they have this barricading system in multiple cities, and the streets are now is acting as a public space, which we used to do through Ragiri Day, has been now permanent solution during this lockdown. So we need to think on multiple alternative and creative things, and not going back to our old practices, for sure.
Thank you very much for your thoughts on that. So the next question I would like to pose is again addressed to Laghu. So what is the average trip length on public transport in India? As the weather will be good in India, Indian cities should also work towards promoting cycling cities. I see a lot of demand on micromobility like e-scooters, and should it be tested in India? What do you think about that?
So it's very difficult to conclude India into one number. So when you ask for a trip length, okay. So if you look at the city like Delhi, Bangalore, Mumbai, the trip lengths are as high as 14 kilometer. Average trip length are 14 kilometer. And the tier 2, tier 3 cities, the trip lengths are in the range of 5 to 8 kilometer. But even then, the majority of the urban India, 60% of the urban India comes under the less than 6 kilometer of the average trip length. It means that more than 70% of the trip lengths are in the range of less than 4 kilometer, which is conducive to the any kind of cycling facility and to be covered by the cycle. So trip lengths are not a question, even if the trip lengths are 14 kilometer and if the metro trip lengths are happening, the first and last trip of all the metro systems are for the first and last mile connectivity, which is not more than 1.5 kilometer, which is required to be done by alternate mode like cycling and walking. As far as weather is concerned, I don't think it could be an excuse for not providing the cycling facilities. And we have seen that across the globe, the weathers are extreme. In the other part of the world, the weathers are as low as minus 10, minus 20 degree, and those are called as a heaven of cycling infrastructure and cycling in the country. So weather is not a probably cannot be an issue as far as initiative to be taken. As Sarika says, I think the intention was missing somewhere so far, and it does not require huge money. All it requires the intentions to implement something. And this now this COVID situation gives us the opportunity, as OP sir also said, the cycling infrastructure is cycling is one of the way to maintain the social distancing and at the same time mobilizing. So that even today the 70% of the trips are within the cycling, within the trip length, which can easily be covered by the cycles. So now we need to go ahead and provide the conducive and the safe infrastructure for those cyclists and the pedestrians.
Thank you very much, Lagu. So looking at the time as well, I think we might only pose the last question for this session now. And this I would pose to all of you experts. So thanks again for all the presentations. The last question would be how to make the operation financially viable when the bus occupation will need to fall to less than half after the pandemic. This is a question posed from Sao Paulo, Brazil. So I'm interested in your answers on that. Thank you.
Where do you want to begin? Okay,
Yes,
let me
go ahead.
I think you know the big issue here is where do you know how do you want to balance the costs? Is your revenue or your income only coming out of fares? If the money is only coming out of fares, in that case, bridging the gap is going to be very difficult because you will have fewer people. I think this is the opportunity to look at other sources of revenue that should be coming to support bus and metro kind of operations. Now, let me give you an example. In Delhi, the Delhi Transport Corporation has about 34 depots. And these depots are located on prime land, right in the, many of them are in city center areas, they are prime land. Should we not get a little more innovative in exploiting that land for other kinds of commercial property development and using that revenue to also support the revenues of the bus companies? Now, these depots today are used only for parking buses at night. I think we need to get more imaginative in how we find revenues for public transport systems and not think of only fares being a source of revenue.
Yeah. Yeah, I think OP sir is rightly pointed out. So far, we were not focusing, and in the bus transportation, the penetration of the non-passenger revenue, non-fare revenue is as low as 3 to 5%, which is very low, and somewhere it is 1 to 2%. And it is the time, because it's not that bus transport was not, public transport was not in loss earlier. They were always in loss, of course, not to that extent, but the future will be, in future they are going to incur more losses. And government subsidy requirement are limited, were limited, and will remain limited. And public transport agencies has no choice but to explore alternate revenue sources. One of them is, as officers talked about, the real estate. They are sitting on a huge land bank, okay, that need to be exploited without compromising the service quality which they are offering, and using the data for alternate revenue sources. Okay, so there could be many things which they can still do and which they were postponing and they were avoiding so far, but now onward probably they will not have any choice but to go ahead to explore these alternate revenue sources.
So adding to this, I think we need to look upon also that how to, like, we always say that public transport need to be subsidized, right? So we can build lesser roads, lesser flyovers, and we can invest that money in public transport system. And I think that's a win-win situation for all of us. Like, we have good public transport system, no need to drive our own car in very stressful traffic jams, getting good air quality and lesser road traffic deaths. So I think instead of building more roads and roads and roads, let's subsidize public transport system. And I don't know, like, if I'm right, but the cost, if you calculate the cost effective of building more roads and subsidizing, in fact 100% subsidizing public transport system, there is a huge impact on both economically, socially, and environmentally.
Okay, thank you to you all for your interesting thoughts on that. And with that, I would like to close the Q&A session. Thank you all for your activities, to all viewers or participants. And just a quick information, we will also try to answer all open questions afterwards in a follow-up email. And with that, I give back to Victor for the closing remarks. Thank you.
I'll be very brief. I would like to thank all the attendees. We had more than 150 attendees during the whole session. I would like to give a warm thank you also to Sarika, to OP, and to Lagu for having the time to present and also to discuss with us. I think it was a very lively discussion. And I think the situation you just addressed is the same around many countries. So I think it's interesting for everyone to see. And also, I thought it was very interesting to see also not the bad side only, but the good side also that COVID is bringing regarding the transport cycle. Let's use this opportunity to really think about new ways of doing mobility in the cities. I would like to thank also the co-organizers, WRI, NUMU, TUMI, Euroclima Plus, GIZ for this, Nagaro participating as well. And to say just two quick reminds, we're gonna have the next webinar in 2 weeks on the 20th of May. It will be this time 11 a.m. in the Eastern time, and the topic will be lessons learned from North America while responding to COVID-19. Stay tuned, follow us on our social medias, and the last but not least, we're gonna have on the 26th of May also our TUMI TV conference. So it's in the screen. You just have to access the TUMI website, and you'll have the opportunity to see on-demand videos, webinars, and that we are collecting now, and also live sessions on the topic on the 26th of May. Thank you very much again for everyone, and I hope you enjoy, and see you. We stay in contact. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.